Chapter 3. It is a circumstance generally acknowledged, though not always sufficiently valued, that the happiness of one's friends may produce a degree of satisfaction equal and sometimes superior to one's own, provided always that such happiness be neither ostentatious nor ill-timed, and that it does not, by too striking a contrast, invite uncomfortable reflection. In the case of Miss Carlack, however, there was no danger of such reflection being anything but agreeable. For her happiness, though abundant, was of so generous a nature that it appeared to enlarge the spirits of all who witnessed it, rather than diminish their own. Mr. Will Ravengard, who had within a very short acquaintance distinguished himself by the ease of his manners and the sincerity of his attentions, found himself that morning once again in her company. And though the interval since their last meeting had been brief, it had not been insufficient to confirm in both a mutual inclination which neither attempted to disguise. "I had hoped," said he, as they walked together along a path which, though not formally arranged, possessed a natural order very much to be preferred by those not overly attached to symmetry, "that I might have the pleasure of seeing you again so soon. But I confess, I did not expect to be so fortunate." Carlack laughed, with that open delight which rendered all compliments both easier to give and more gratifying to receive. "You say that as if it were difficult," she replied. "You have only to call, and Halsin will see you received." "I should not wish to presume." "You do not seem the sort to do anything of the kind." "I hope not," said Will, smiling, "though I am very conscious that I have already done so." Carlack regarded him with curiosity rather than offence. "In what way?" "In allowing myself to look forward to your company," he said. "It is, I believe, a presumption to expect pleasure where one has no right to claim it." Carlack shook her head. "That sounds like something someone told you to say, not something you believe." He paused and then laughed. "You may be right." "I think," she continued, with an earnestness that softened the boldness of her speech, "that if you enjoy something, you ought not to make it more complicated than it is. It seems a shame." "It would be a greater shame," he returned, "to treat it lightly." "And do you think you are in danger of that?" "Not at all," said he, more seriously than before. "I think I am in danger of the opposite." Carlack's expression, though still bright, altered by a degree which might have been missed by those less attentive to her than he had already become. "Then we are in the same danger," she said. "There are moments which, though composed of very few words, contain within them the substance of many, and this was one. Neither sought to extend it unnecessarily, for there is a kind of understanding which does not require elaboration, and which, if pressed, might even be diminished by it." After a short silence, during which both appeared equally content, Will resumed, though with a lightness intended to restore the ease of their earlier conversation. "I must own," said he, "that I have not often found society so agreeable as I did last evening, and I am persuaded that the greater part of that pleasure is to be attributed to you." "You must not say so," said Carlack, though without any real attempt to check him. "There were many there to entertain you." "There were many," he agreed, "but none who did so with such effect." "You are very determined to flatter me. I am determined to be honest. That is far more dangerous. Only if you intend to contradict me." "I might," she said with a smile, "but I do not wish to." "Then I am safe, for now." He inclined his head as if accepting terms in a negotiation, the outcome of which he had no desire to alter. "I shall endeavour to remain so." They had by this time reached a small clearing where the light, falling more freely, gave to everything within it a softness which the deeper shade of the surrounding trees had withheld. Carlack paused not from fatigue, but from that simple pleasure in being exactly where one wishes to be, which requires no further excuse. "It is very beautiful here," she said. "It is," he replied, "though I suspect I should think so anywhere, provided—" He stopped. "Provided what?" she asked. He met her gaze with a steadiness which, though new, was not uncertain. "Provided I were in good company." Carlac did not laugh this time, nor did she look away. There was, in her manner, something so entirely free of artifice that even a sentiment so often expressed as his could not, in her hearing, be reduced to commonplace. "Then you are fortunate," she said simply. "I am," he answered. If their acquaintance had proceeded thus far with uncommon rapidity, it must be remembered that there are dispositions for which delay serves no useful purpose, and in which sincerity, once awakened, prefers expression to concealment. That others might have considered such openness imprudent did not occur to either of them, and if it had, it is doubtful that it would have altered their conduct. For though the world abounds with those who mistake caution for wisdom, there remain, happily, a few who understand that happiness, when found, is not improved by hesitation. If the morning had afforded some the opportunity of pleasure, it had not, by that same measure, deprived others of observation. For there are those whose attention, though not always visible, is seldom inactive, and whose conclusions are formed long before they are declared. Minthara Benre was not a woman inclined to mistake inclination for accident. She had observed Mr. Gale Decarios throughout the previous evening with a degree of attention which, though not remarked upon by those unaccustomed to her, would have been sufficient to discompose any who understood its purpose. That he had conducted himself with propriety was not in question. That he had done so with his usual precision was equally beyond dispute. And yet, there had been, in his manner, something less fixed than she preferred. Such variations, though slight, were not, in her estimation, to be dismissed. It was therefore with no appearance of urgency and every appearance of intention that she sought him the following day. He was found, as she might have expected, in a room more suited to reflection than society, where books and papers were arranged with an order that suggested both habit and necessity. That he should be alone was convenient, that he should not immediately perceive her presence was, perhaps, less so. Wizard. The word, though quietly spoken, was not gentle. Gale looked up at once. "Minthara, you appear occupied." "I was," he said, setting aside the volume before him with a care that bordered on reluctance, though not, I think, beyond interruption. "How accommodating. I should not wish to be otherwise." "No," she replied. "You would not." There was a pause, not of uncertainty but of adjustment, for while Gale was not unaccustomed to Minthara's manner, he was not insensible to its intent, and knew better than to suppose that such a visit was without purpose. "You have something to say," he said. "I have several things to say," she returned. "Whether you are inclined to hear them is another matter." "I am always inclined to hear what you consider worth saying." "That is not the same as understanding it." "I will endeavour to do both." "You will endeavour," she repeated, as if the word itself were insufficient. Gale did not answer. There are occasions upon which contradiction serves no purpose, and this was one. Minthara regarded him for a moment, her expression unchanged, though not unobservant. "You were inattentive last evening." "I do not believe I was." "You believe incorrectly." He allowed himself a slight breath, which might have been taken for patience by those unfamiliar with him, and for restraint by those who were not. "In what way?" he asked. "In a manner," she said, which would have been obvious to anyone who cared to observe it. "Then I am fortunate," he returned, "that so few did." "You are mistaken again." Gale met her gaze. "You observed it. I observe many things, and draw conclusions from them. Always." "Then I must hope your conclusions are favourable." You must do more than hope. There are some exchanges in which meaning is conveyed not by what is said, but by what is withheld. Gale, who was not without perception, understood that the conversation had already reached its point, though it had not yet declared it. "If you intend to accuse me of some failure," he said, with a composure that was not entirely unaffected, "you may do so directly." "I have no need to accuse you," Minthara replied. "You have already demonstrated it." "And what failure is that?" Her gaze did not waver. "You are distracted." The word, though simple, was delivered with such exactness that it admitted of no easy dismissal. "I do not see that distraction constitutes a failure." "No," she said. "You would not?" Her gaze did not waver. "You chose to fix your attention upon her and then pretend you had not done so." Gale did not immediately reply. "If you intend to observe her," Minthara continued, "then do so openly. If you do not, then do not do it at all. This half measure is inefficient." Gale's mouth curved very slightly. "I had not supposed myself subject to such scrutiny." "You are subject to whatever scrutiny you invite." "And I have invited yours?" "You have not prevented it." This, though perhaps true, was not an answer he found particularly useful. "You believe, then," he said, "that I have conducted myself improperly." "I believe," she returned, "that you have conducted yourself without your usual discipline." "And that concerns you?" "It should concern you. You are not a man who indulges himself without consequence." Gale was silent. Minthara took a step further into the room, her presence, if possible, becoming more pronounced rather than less. "You are not," she continued, "a man accustomed to uncertainty." "No, nor to error. I try to avoid it." "And yet you approach both with remarkable willingness." "I am not aware," he said, more carefully now, "of having done either." "You are aware," she said, "of where your attention was directed." He did not answer. Minthara inclined her head very slightly as if in acknowledgement of a point conceded. "It is not," she went on, "a matter of preference. Preferences are trivial. This is a matter of judgment. And you find mine lacking. I find it compromised." There are few words which, spoken in the right tone, can produce a greater effect than many spoken at length. Gale, who had borne her criticisms before without alteration of temper, felt this one more keenly than he chose to express. "You are very certain," he said. "I am rarely otherwise." "And you believe," he continued, "that I should defer to your certainty." "I believe," she replied, "that you should question your own." The silence which followed was not uncomfortable, but neither was it easy. It was the silence of two minds equally unwilling to yield, and equally aware that something had already shifted. At length Gale spoke. "You have formed an opinion," he said. "I do not suppose I can alter it." "That depends," said Minthara. "On what?" "On whether you intend to prove me right." Gale looked at her, and for the first time since she had entered, there was in his expression something less composed than before, not agitation, but thought, and something bordering upon resistance. "I do not," he said, "generally make a practice of doing so." "No," she agreed. "You do not." She turned then, as if the matter were concluded, though nothing in it had been resolved. At the door, she paused. "Wizard." He did not reply immediately. "If you choose to act," she said, without looking back, "do so with intention. Anything less is unworthy of you." And with that, she left him. Gale remained where he was, the book before him unopened, his attention no longer upon it. That he had been challenged was not unusual. That he should find himself, for once, uncertain whether the challenge was unjust. This was new. And though he would not yet have admitted it, even to himself, there are few states of mind more dangerous to a man of principle than the first moment in which he begins to doubt the sufficiency of his own.